Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Hey David, thanks for being with me, man. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. It is an interesting time. Like I was saying earlier, I'm traveling, so I've been learning. I've been learning the basics of training, having not trained for my entire life. So that has been a good experience, to say the least.
No, learning is always a good experience. It's always very recharging. Could be exhausting, but in the end of the day, you just go to bed knowing that you're gonna wake up a better man than who you were a week ago. So that's always good, something good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? And how did you knew that this was the way to go? So that's what you do for a living, please.
You got it. So I am three things. I do three things for a living. I am a software engineer by training. I still write a ton of software. I work as a principal venture investor at the Dubai Future District Fund, and I'm also an attorney. I run a very small practice helping founders and investors make investments in tech companies. And I also do I guess you could call it a separate sub practice doing technical due diligence, essentially for investors who are investing in SaaS companies separately from the legal practice. I'll do technical due diligence and consulting on those deals. So somebody's buying a software company, I'll help them go and look through a checklist of 40 or 50 things on what to be aware of for that software company so that post close things go well, or at the very least, they know where the fires and bodies will be buried.
You look tremendously well for a guy who's doing three jobs. I
I
gotta.
suffer. I suffer deeply. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's brutal.
Now, legal advice, I get it. Okay, software engineering and advising, people what to buy when they're in that sector, that's a bit connected. So yeah, I can see the connection there. But those are very specific things. And from what I'm seeing from my experience, people don't go into those specific areas because they literally have nothing else to do. So were you walking the street one day and you decide, you know what, let me try that, or did something lead you to that?
Um, well, the story's kind of fun, I guess. So everybody finds their own way to this. I kind of had a very dumb algorithm. I was like a while ago. This is man, I was maybe like 22. I was working my second job out of college, and I was pretty annoyed because I was like, I would sure like to have more money. So I
Yeah.
just stopped. So I just stopped and I was like, okay, let me think about this for a second. Who are the people that have all the money? Let me just like, where is it? I can figure that out. All right. Like if I'm going to have all the money, let me just understand where it anything, just where is it, right? And the first answer you come to if you actually look up where all of the money, like out of all the US dollars, I have some percentage, right? So if you look up where all the dollars are, they all sit on small computers inside of Federal Reserve banks in the United States. So it's like, okay, cool, that's one piece of the puzzle. Then you just have to keep digging. It's like, okay, you start with the treasury markets, then you get to the bond markets, then you get to the stock market, which is really one small piece of a larger puzzle. And then you can start having fun kind of digging into what's the size of each of the economies and what's the circulation and M2 money supply of each of the currencies. And then you say, okay, great. So this is where all the money is. But I'm a software engineer. At that time, I was originally musical theater, but more on that later. So
Sweet.
yeah. So I just sat and I said, okay, who are all these people with money and how do I become like them? Right. So now that I understood where the money was, then you just go and look who are the people who have the responsibility of allocating and manipulating all the money. Easy enough. So I start looking up senators, entrepreneurs, billionaires, and just looking up billionaires. And then I would just go on LinkedIn. It's like they literally tell you how they got there, right? So I would go on LinkedIn. I'd see like, okay, Ted Cruz, U.S. Senator. How did he get there? Okay, lawyer, makes sense. Yale Law, got it. Federal clerkship, maybe this other guy went to a state school, University of Alabama, starts this company. Micron, the semiconductor memory manufacturing company, started by an Idaho potato billionaire, right? So there's all these different crazy little stories you start finding. And then you start to see, okay, there's some commonalities in these different pieces. Some of this is kind of obvious. When you then get to the point where you start to see, okay, some percentage of the people who seem to have the biggest impact in the US seem to be attorneys. That kind of made a lot of sense. And a lot of them seem to be engineers who start large companies, also made a lot of sense. But the majority of the people who were billionaires appeared to be hedge fund managers. So it made sense. All right, great. Got to go learn how to properly invest. That was hard. And it has been very hard. And I have failed many, many times. But in general, that was the process one day when I was about 22 that I went through. It was, okay, I'm annoyed by feeling like I don't understand a lot about how the world works. So I have to understand how the world works. If you understand how the world works, you'll understand how the money moves. If you understand how the money moves, you'll understand how to get more of it. And then just go and work in those areas, right? If you're inside of a box where all the, those boxes at the carnival where all the money's flying
Yeah.
around, I would probably do better standing inside the box than not. So I went to work in finance. That was the thought process by the time I was 22, anyway. But before that, it was a lot simpler. I was originally just thinking of doing musical theater. I loved improv comedy when I was in high school. This is in the U.S., by the way. So
Yeah.
I grew up in New Jersey. So I loved improv comedy. That was tremendously helpful for me. I did that for the rest of college, along with doing the Glee Club, musical theater, all these other things. So it was clear, at least graduating high school, that I thought I wanted to be an actor. And it became obvious very quickly that that was not a good
Which is
idea.
also profitable if you're good at it.
Yes, unfortunately, I was not. So
Fair enough.
I could have been much better, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't something I think where just knowing my personality and looking back now, I think you have to be someone who's comfortable dedicating your entire
Yeah.
life to just that in order to be good enough that you could make it as an actor, especially considering how hard it is to make it as an actor already. Even at that time, way back when I was in high school, it might have been easier to make it as an actor, but it was still incredibly hard. So it made sense maybe to branch out for me, just because I wasn't the kind of person. I was too curious. I was too interested in too many things. It didn't really make sense for me to try to really branch out into or rather, it didn't make sense to me to lock myself into one thing and to try to really branch out instead. So I coincidentally, through a series of funny interactions with other people in college and whatnot, I ended up switching to computer science. Towards the end of college, I did a couple of internships. I loved it. I ended up developing a love of learning, and that switched me to a double major computer science physics by the end of college. And then I worked my first job or two. My first job was at Tumblr. I was there for about 6 months. Stop me if I'm going too long, by the way. I
No, you
think the
don't.
story is,
No,
I think the story is useful,
I love
but
it.
thank you, thank you. So, um, leading up to my revelation at 22, there was a couple of things that made me pretty annoyed by the time I sat and said, "Okay, where's all the money?" I spent like 6 months on that quest. So my first job out of college, I had done a couple of internships as a computer science major, and up to this point, it's honestly pretty straightforward. Not that exciting of a story. I was at my first job as a software engineer and I left after about 6 months to start a nonprofit giving out McChickens and water to the homeless off the hood of my car. I was
All right.
I was brought into an existing nonprofit basically that had just been founded by a good friend of mine that grew up in my town named John O'Maragi and his now wife Kelsey. Both of them, by the way, get the vast majority of the credit for starting and running ARM. I don't. I didn't achieve nearly as much as they did, but the three of us were the co-founders of Archangel Raphael's mission, and the thought process was simple enough. Two or three ideas kind of put together. Was the first was the real vision, which was, okay, if we could get a shower bus. John had heard and seen this idea. He was really interested in philanthropy, and he was really interested in this idea. If we could build a shower bus similar to what had been done on the West Coast. If you can give people regular access to showers that were homeless, well, that would solve a big part of the puzzle for how you reintegrate into society. For example, if you can if you can get a regular supply of clean and fresh clothes and get regular showers, suddenly you don't look homeless. And if you don't look homeless, you're not homeless, right? You can walk into a Burger King, split rent with somebody else, and suddenly, boom, you've solved the problem. I like to joke that the goal of the nonprofit was to eliminate the homeless, which was not as popular of a slogan as I wanted it to be. But
Yeah, to be
that
honest,
was
instead
the,
of chickens and water, you could have just given knives and vodkas and you would reduce the population of homeless pretty fast.
I suppose that would have also worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
uh,
you gotta spend the same amount of money. I said it with a
I,
straight face. Not a lot of people can do that.
yeah. Well, we didn't try that strategy, but if I could go back, maybe I could have brought it up.
Yeah, for
If I can go
sure.
back in time, I'll throw it on the board. But
Nah,
anyway,
that's just
so
something that maybe I could try, but you look like way too distant a guy. So, this is people don't do that. You just don't have the face.
So, in any event, that was the plan and that was the idea. It turned out to be a little harder than this. We did give out food and we did give out a lot of clothing, run events. The thing I learned after about 6 or 7 months of doing this is that nonprofit is a literal term. And so I had to get a job.
Yeah.
So I got a job in private equity. I was the first new software engineer at a company that had just been acquired by Alpine Investors. It was a wonderful company called CSF. And I was the first new software engineer in 20 years. It was a unique experience. I basically joined this very established team of guys who all knew each other really well, and it was wonderful. So we spent the next 2 years with a new head of sales, new CEO, new head of marketing. I was one of two new software engineers. Then we did another acquisition, bolted on, and then the next 2 years, I was doing my master's and working this job. It was an intense time. Things went well. On the other side, I got the master's. The company got acquired, so it was a success. And my two co-founders, John and Kelsey, got engaged. They took over the nonprofit, and so I had my hands free. So after that, I took a new job at a company called R3 in New York City, working with the company doing blockchain deployments for large banks and fintechs. It was a cool experience. I learned a ton. So that was the full time. On the side, I was like, well, I just went through this whole acquisition process. And I feel like these investors that were the ones who decided when to buy the company, when to sell it, and what would happen with everyone involved. So I felt like I kind of had no clue what was going on, which led to me getting annoyed and saying, I want to figure out where all the money is. So I did that deep dive. That's what led to the deep dive we talked about before. So I joined this program to understand this a little bit better. I started looking around. Apparently, private equity was a much more competitive industry than I was aware, but I didn't know anything because I was just a software engineer at the time. So I had this nice master's in computer science, but I felt like I didn't understand a lot about the rest of the world. So the two options for learning or continuing that came up were okay, you can do an MBA or you can do law school. There were multiple reasons law school made more sense. One, I felt like the MBA was too squishy. It just didn't seem like it was going to teach me skills that were going to be more impactful than the law degree would already teach me. I figured I could self teach finance, but if I did the law school, I would get a degree that would give me an additional career and kind of a superpower, right? Like
Yeah.
only lawyers can litigate at the end of the day. And I felt like it would be a useful path. Just thinking back to the Ted Cruz or the multiple leagues of successful attorneys in the business world, and the credibility that comes with that, and the opportunity that comes with
Yeah.
being able to sell as an attorney, et cetera, et cetera. It's true; it made a big difference. I also had so many conversations that ended with, "Oh, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know," that I just signed up for law school out of rage. It was just
Yeah,
stupid.
yeah, I've always
I was
hated
like,
it.
"Yeah,
You know,
are we
I'm
going to
not a
go the rest
doctor.
of our
Maybe you
lives?"
should. Every single time I hear it, something it's testing my Christian faith. If you're not one, keep it to
Right.
yourself, or at least if you'd like to hear my opinion, I have some to tell you. That's also nice. But the
Uh,
moment someone said, "Well, I'm not an expert on the subject," enough. Yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah. It's
Especially because the law is written down. Like it's there. You can read it.
Yeah,
It's not like you don't need the degree to understand to a certain extent, especially now because we all have the AI tools. It's a lot easier to understand what the law is. So yeah, at least at that time before AI, my thought process was software engineering is gonna like AI was a thing, but it wasn't that big of a thing at the time. So it was a pretty weird idea to have a master's in computer science and then go dip to go do law school. But I
yeah,
basically figured that it would be a killer, if nothing else, it would be a killer combination, and the two things would probably lead to some cool opportunities one way or another. And I think that basically turned out to be the case, thankfully. So I was doing law school right after the masters, and I found an online program, non ABA accredited, which is very unusual if you're not familiar with this in the states.
yeah,
Basically, most law schools in the states are a very broken game. Most education in the states is a broken game, but the law
yeah. I
schools
heard those
specifically.
complaints.
Yeah, so long story short, the student loans are too high, right? Like they
Yeah,
just charge
exactly.
you, they charge you more than the product is worth. So this law school was wonderful. Shout out to Northwestern California University School of Law. So it's a fully online law school, and it's accredited by the state of California. So while it's not ABA, meaning it does not by default let you be a lawyer anywhere in the country, it works for most federal courts, and it works for one of the most important states, which was California. So it made sense to me to go for that because I knew that most tech companies are in California, and I knew that depending on what kinds of areas of law I wanted to practice, if they were going to be federal, I'd be a lawyer anyway, and it wouldn't make a big
Yeah.
difference. So that was worth it because I graduated with no student debt. I paid out of pocket. It was about $3,000 a year for law
No,
school.
that's pretty good. The
Pretty
story
good.
I've heard, especially about the United States, like I graduated a private college. I don't remember
Okay.
how much was it, but I remember it was around 60, the whole semester was around 60% of my monthly salary. And I was working as a
Mm.
bartender. Right. And that was a
Okay.
private college. N- Uh,
Nice.
the master's degree was different because education is free in Denmark. So I didn't pay.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you don't hear a lot of stories about like that in the United States.
Yeah, it's tough. So at least with this program, it was totally worth it. So I was doing that program part time while working full time in blockchain. 2 years go by. I end up getting recruited to be the CTO of a company that had been venture backed by Bloomberg Beta. So
Yeah.
that was I took that job, became CTO of Ecoverse. This was an interesting one where the company had gotten investment and needed a CTO to kind of build a team and build the product.
Yeah.
It was a tense 2 years. So I was doing that job. I was doing law school, and I was trying to learn about venture and finance. And I had done a fellowship program called Going VC, which I'm now sort of a mentor at, which is great. And that stuff sort of, you can see how the snowball sort of starts
Yeah.
rolling if there is one, where I think you just keep doing things. Steve Jobs has this wonderful quote where he basically says, you know, those drawings that have where you draw the line from one to the next, one, two, three, four, five, and by the end of it, you have a picture that you've drawn. And Steve has this great saying. He goes, "You can't connect the dots in reverse. You'll notice if you look backwards, these big jumps that happen, but you can never figure out when or where they're going to happen. You can only notice when looking backwards." So I think this is probably accurate, certainly for me. Um, so things went on kind of this way for the next 2 years. I end up getting tapped to work through a series of crazy coincidences. I can't tell all of it in this context, but through a series of crazy coincidences, I get introduced to the then CEO of the Dubai Future District Fund right as they were getting started. And so I was able to join as part of the investment team as sort of a combination between a member of the investment team on the finance side and also someone bringing a lot of software engineering experience because this was a time still in early 2021 when a lot of deals and investments were being made into software companies by people with MBAs who knew nothing about software. I was a
Yeah.
software guy going and learning the other side. So it kind of worked out really well and it was a nice mix. So that's sort of that long story short, that's sort of how that came together. I've been at DFDF now for almost 4 years. It's one of my favorite places I've ever worked. Wonderful fun. It taught me a ton about the world and how other economies operate, et cetera. So that was one piece of the puzzle. And then on the full time side, law school was chugging along. Ecoverse went through some tough times, not really related to the company, despite the incredible efforts by the CEO and the sales guys. But there was the crypto winter, and this was a company that was specializing in NFTs, if you knew about those.
Yeah, I'm
So
familiar.
so there was crypto winter, the NFT winter, crypto markets crashed, then SVB blew up, then FTX blew up. And so it just was this cascade of things that did not help when it came to trying to sell. And so things didn't work out, at least at that time. So I ended up leaving and going to finish up law school. I was tapped on the shoulder by a friend of a friend to help doing technical due diligence, which is how I got into this work. Someone basically said, "Hey, David, you've been helping DFDF with these investments for this long while. Like, you're a technical guy and you're a VC. Can you help me with this investment I'm doing in Africa?" So I said I would love that. So that was the first time I did that work, and I realized there was very few people doing it. So it was kind of an underserved market, and there's literally nobody else with that combination of skill sets. So I was doing tech DD for investors to pay my way through law school, and so I graduated, took the bar, passed, and on the other side, I get tapped by someone who knew me based on my various exploring the internet and what have you, who said, "Hey, David, like, you've got this very interesting background. We've talked once or twice before. I want you to run a search fund." And it was an incredible experience. I'm very, very lucky. Learned a ton doing that. A search fund, by the way, if you're not familiar, is basically a small
Yeah.
private equity fund. The idea is basically you and some friends, in this case LPs, and your investors, and maybe a partner or two. You get together and you go look around. Literally, you just look on the web and you set up some software tools to do this. You get in touch with the owners. You buy the business, and then you take it over. You get a loan from a bank. You buy the business, improve it, and then after maybe 2 to 5 years, you sell the business, and then you make it, hopefully, a ton of money for your investors, and then hopefully you win. You get a big home run for yourself, and then you get to move on to your next opportunity. So
Yeah, I
that's
started the
the
same thing with renovating homes a while ago. Laws are different now, so I can't do it anymore, but it was pretty fun and good.
Yeah, it's search funds are hard, and that game has changed a lot since then. But either way, that was the next thing that kind of came to me from the universe. And unfortunately, it didn't work out quite the way we thought it would. We did find a great business and we did end up getting under LOI, but the deal fell through, which is a classic story in search funds. So, no hard feelings there. But after that, the question was what to do next. And a couple of different unique kind of freelancing projects came my way and landed in my hands at just the right time. I working as a fractional CTO for one client, and somebody else says, "Hey, I need you to work with me on this, that, or the other project." And then before I know it, I'm ending up with a lot of work to do, right? And then suddenly, like, I'm looking now at some potential opportunities with litigation and helping some clients that really could use the impact that I might be able to bring just with my hands and having the law degree and having the technical experience that I've got at this point. And it's pretty cool to see, at least looking back. As far as the very long-winded answer for how I got here is
Yeah.
sort of that, right? Like, I can give you a, I guess, a generalization of this whole story I've given you that comes from a great blog post from Mark Andreessen. He basically says there's four kinds of luck. Okay, one kind of luck is you and I are walking out of the bar down the street and we see $100 on the floor. That's luck, right? But that's random. Another kind of luck when it comes to the career is to go look around and say, okay, let me work in an industry where a lot is happening. For example, venture capital or AI or even, chemistry, material science, et cetera. There's a lot of things happening in those fields. Big things seem to be coming up depending on which area you're working in. Great. So pick an industry where something is happening and then go live in a city where a lot is happening. You can live in Austin or Dubai or New York, et cetera. If you go and live in these cities where lots of things are happening, then there will just be more things happening around you. So if you are in an industry where a lot of things are happening, well, then you're more likely for something to just randomly hit you across the face, right? And then the last thing is for you to do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Just if you do lots of stuff, throw yourself in a lot of different directions, say yes to lots of people, and take on lots of different opportunities. Before you know it, you will start to find different things come to your hands and light the way for a lot of different things you wouldn't have thought you could do. And I
Seems
have
to me
seen
you're a
that certainly.
combination of number two, three, and four.
Yeah, exactly. It's just about going out of your way to go after a lot of stuff. I think that's
Yeah.
the most important thing anyone could do as far as how I got here. I think without knowing it, that was what essentially I was doing, which was just following the things I thought were interesting, going after them and trying to learn as much as I could.
It's amazing. And you actually pretty much answered number two and number three. I guess that's why I phrased it that way. David, I don't think I've ever said this to anyone. Maybe I have, but I suppose it's been so long I forgot. But anyways, once we're done here, call your parents and tell them that they did an amazing job raising you. Yeah, I still have one more
Thank you.
question, but just wanted to get this out of the way. Just tell them that
Thank you. Thank you.
David says you guys did a great job raising David. It's amazing.
I appreciate it.
David, my podcast is mostly aimed at people who are either at the end of the college run or at the end of university. They just got a new job and
Yep.
sitting in there wondering if this job for me or not, have I did the right thing? If you can give my audience one advice top of your head, what's it gonna be?
Okay. It's hard to pick one, but I would say the
Yeah,
most important thing is the coolest part about trying to be successful is that you get to decide what success is, right? Like
pretty good.
if you wanted to say you were successful, you can just decide that you are, right? It's not as simple as that, obviously, but you can set your own goals for yourself and you don't have to achieve them 100%, right? Like a 70 is a C, right?
Yeah,
So every year you sit down and make a little spreadsheet. I do this. Set your goals for yourself, maybe three or four things, and then set some way to measure it. Maybe it's number of books I read. I want to read 10 books, I read 7. Cool, that's a 70. A 70 is a pass, right? If you hit your goals 100%, you probably weren't ambitious enough. But if you only hit it like 5%, then you were being ridiculous. It's simple enough. So set realistic goals for yourself at the beginning of the year and then look at your spreadsheet again like once a month. Cool. And then as you go, you will start to see whether you are in fact being successful as you defined it. The best part too is you don't have to stick to it. You can change it whenever you want. But if you're ever having a bad day, you can just go look back at your spreadsheet and say, I thought I was having a bad day, but the numbers suggest that I'm not. So I don't feel bad. Done. Right? It's actually kind of that simple. At least if you are serious and you actually wrote meaningful goals that you sincerely believe you can actually achieve, and then you go after them, then yeah, you can be successful, right? It's not actually we kind of glorify success in this very unhealthy way. But if you sit down and just say, what are the things that I actually want to have? What's most important to me? Then write that down and then go after that every year. If you, as that compounds year after year, you'll find that you have vastly outpaced the majority of people around you that maybe you thought maybe you compared yourself to in an unhealthy way before. Especially now, there's probably a pretty strong tendency to do that. But I mean, the truth is, like like 50% of people will be average, right? Like it's not that hard. It's not that hard to do better than average. So I would keep that in mind, regardless of where you're at. All you have to
that's
do is
a
just compound good decisions.
that's a tremendous advice. I've always did everything within my power to surround myself with people that are smarter than I, more knowledgeable, and in general, just talk to smart people. And I talk to a lot of smart people. I talk to a lot of smart people on the program as well. I it's good to have the pleasure to talk to someone who's smart. You're obviously smart, but you also are very wise, which is a good combination. I really like that.
Uh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And with that said, David. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, man. And how much wisdom's locked in your head is beyond me. It's just remarkable. It's just great to see.
Thank you, thank you. Honestly, most of it just comes from reading, which
Yeah.
sucks because I'm not great at reading.
Yeah. I
I have
hate it, but
probably
I do it all the
consumed
time because I need to.
Yeah, I've consumed too much Twitter to be good at reading, but I will say there are a ton of phenomenal books. And if you just start compounding with the books as well, like as silly as it sounds,
Yeah.
reading like the classics, just look up the best books and just read those a second time, right? Like why if you have the choice to read 100 books, you might as well like that the top 20% of books are going to be the most important anyway, so just read those books a second time instead of going down the pike and reading worse books. Like read Intelligent Investor twice, for example. You know, read the Five Types of Wealth is good. I could go on and on, but
I
there's
have
a
a
lot of
few
really great
books.
books out there.
I have a few books that I'm reading once every 5 years because it's
Okay,
different. Because I'm different.
what do you
And
got?
it's quite a list, mostly sci-fi, but philosophical stuff.
Okay.
In
Mm,
that way, because always, puff my chest that I haven't changed one bit since I was born, and I've always been that way. Yeah, no, people are constantly changing, and I'm no exception. But yeah, it's a
mm.
fun little thing to say. But yeah, no, if you keep reading the things that you really like every 5 years, you really, look at it with a different eye.
Yeah. Like each time you read the book, there's a fun parable I learned way back in church. They basically you have this parable of a monk who tells a boy to go and bring the monk gives the boy a coal basket. It's a
Yeah,
basket for moving a bunch of dirt around, right? And he says, hey, can you bring me some water? It's a basket. So the boy goes to the river, tries to bring the water back, and obviously the water falls out, and he tells the monk like this isn't going to work, like the water. So the monk's like do it again. And then with the wisdom of monks, the boy cleverly was like, all right, I'll do it. So the boy goes back to the river, brings the water back, fails. And the monk keeps telling him to do it. This goes on for like 6 hours, at least in the story. And eventually the boy's like, hey, like this is not going to work. So the monk is like, yes, but look at the basket. And the basket has been cleaned, right? So this is and the parable or the lesson of the story, of course, is that you will find even if you don't know why, if you just do the work
yeah.
as simple as it is in so many different areas, you will find that you have been made better as a result of it. And there's a lot of cool research around willpower and the way that doing things that are hard grow that part of the I forget whether it's the neocortex or whatever it is, the part of your brain that actually builds willpower grows when you force yourself to do things that are difficult. And it's a similar kind of reflex.
Solid advice, totally awesome. And with that said, David, man, it was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.